What's up, y'all? Happy New Year. Uh, I got a lot of programming work done over the break. I did a lot of NIM work, and um, and I also took another look at Zig. And I haven't actually seriously looked at Zig since 2020 when I started using NIM. Okay, so 3 years ago, I started using NIM a lot because I wanted to get something closer to the metal that still gave me a lot of the expressivity that Clojure gave me. And I think it was a good choice. I don't regret it at all. But I decided to take another look at Zig because back then it was in a much different place. It was like I hit a compiler bug pretty early on when I was using it, so that turned me off. And also back then, I was a lot more militant about macros, because I'm a Clojure guy. I need my macros. And, you can see right on the front page here, they take a hardline stance against macros. And I was like, no. um, but now that I'm using it again, I'm starting to change my mind. Like the comp time system is more powerful than I thought it was. It's not as powerful as macros, but it's what I would call one of those 80% solutions that get you about 80% of the power with much less complexity. Okay? So it's not as powerful as macros, but it also doesn't bring all of the complexity and unreadability of macros. And now I'm like, you know what? That's a pretty damn good trade off. I mean, you can do a lot of stuff. It's not just compile time function execution. You can do some interesting stuff like iterating over the fields of a struct and blah blah blah. You can do some powerful stuff. They've got this mechanism. What is it called? Multi-array list. Um, I don't know if it's going to come up, but it's kind of a showcase of how powerful the comp time system is, um, because it basically takes any struct and it creates a struct of arrays out of it, which, if you're familiar with data-oriented design, is a common technique that people use to get better cache locality. And they did this with userland code using comp time, which I was like, wait a minute, that's actually possible? Because, you can get that in a language with macros, but um, they accomplished it without macros. That's actually really impressive. And the end result is a much simpler, more readable language. So, yeah, I've been taking another look at it. I think my next project is going to be in Zig. Uh, I already have an idea in mind. Again, I don't have any hatred towards NIM or anything. I've been using it for 3 years. I made dozens of projects, but the more I think about it, I'm like, wait, I actually agree with the design decisions of Zig because they're almost the exact opposite of NIM. Okay, Zig says no to almost every feature. It puts a high value on like high leverage features that accomplish a lot with a little. That's what I've noticed. And uh, NIM, on the other hand, says yes to almost every feature, except for interfaces for some reason. That's the one feature that NIM said no to. I'm not sure why. Because it said yes to a lot of other things. It said no to interfaces, but it said yes to frickin' source code filters. Okay, this thing is uh, what am I searching for? Oh, oh, yeah, yeah. So this is one of the more regrettable things that that was added to NIM. It's actually like a text replacement mechanism that you could put at the top of any NIM file that just completely changes the syntax. Um, and no, no, come on, guys. I don't know why it exists. but there's a lot of stuff like that, features that I don't agree with, and try to avoid. But they're there, and that's, I think, just a distinctly different philosophies that NIM has a lot more what you would call programmer convenience features. And that's fine. A lot of people demand that out of a language, but more and more I've decided I don't want that. Like when I see a feature that is based on programmer convenience, I'm immediately suspicious. I'm immediately asking, what's the trade off? Because often it's something where it makes it more fun to write, but a lot less fun to read and to try to debug. You know, like in NIM, imports by default are unqualified. So they just pull everything in. And from the very beginning, I always used the longer syntax, which which brings a module in and requires you to qualify all of the symbols, because that's how it should be, you know, because it makes it more readable. But yeah, I read other people's code and it's like always doing unqualified imports, and I'm like, God damn it. You know, like I understand it's not the end of the world, especially if you have a nice IDE that can tell you where every symbol is coming from, but I use Vim most of the time and it doesn't do that. I actually like Zig's approach, which is basically um, making code readable even if it's printed out on a frickin' piece of paper. That's actually what I want now. I don't like the idea that a language would need a fancy IDE in order to navigate it and understand it. I think that's a deficiency in the language if it's like that. Another feature that kind of has to do with this is function overloading and operator overloading. Zig just says flat out no to both, and now I totally agree with it. Like, you know, function overloading, it seems like an uncontroversial thing. You know, you can name a function, you can give multiple functions the same name with different arguments. What's the big deal? Well, trying to actually resolve which function is going to be called is not always simple. You know, there's an actual algorithm to decide this. And when you're reading the code, you have to run that frickin' algorithm in your head. And you're not always right, by the way. I've had situations where my code actually compiled and ran, but it used a different function than the one I expected. You know, and that's bad. That's really bad. I don't know why anyone would think that's a good thing. But it's convenient. And programmer convenience is what matters, right? No, I agree with Zig on this. Just get rid of overloading. It's not actually as extreme as it sounds in Zig, because you can still put functions, like, there's not really an example here, but you can put a function inside of a struct and it will be namespaced by that struct. So you can, you know, you can define multiple functions with the same name if they're in different structs. So it's not that bad anyway. And operator overloading, yeah, I get it. We all want to do matrix math with the multiply symbol and all that. I hope that Zig adds matrix types to the standard library, so we can get that, but I'm okay with not having it. It's not the end of the world to not have operator overloading. And I totally agree now with the stance, you know, that you can read code and actually understand what is going on, because you know that's not calling some random weird overload that someone created and imported in, you didn't notice. You know, I'm tired of that. So I like that philosophy a lot. I also like the error system in Zig. It's maybe a little bit too minimal, but um, but it treats errors as values that you actually return. So you're forced to see them and deal with them. You know, NIM has exceptions, and once again, they're convenient. They're easy to ignore. They're kind of invisible, but I think I'm on this side now. Like, errors should be explicit. They should be part of the function signature. They should not be hidden. And there are some deficiencies here, like you can't pass data with the error. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but overall, I think this is really elegant, and overall, I like this approach way more than Rust's, which is more of a monadic approach. The way Zig deals with it is like essentially creating a union type. Same thing with how it deals with nullability. I don't know where that is. Yeah, optional types. These are true union types in Zig, which I think is just a lot more elegant than wrapping and unwrapping all the time like you have to do with the monadic style. And I mean, there's no point even comparing the two languages. I'm never going to use Rust. I used it many years ago. It's a explosion of complexity, and it doesn't fit my taste at all. I am more than happy to accept a bit less memory safety in exchange for a much simpler language. That's my taste. It's my aesthetics. I don't know if there's a lot of objectivity to it, but yeah, I appreciate the simplicity of a language like Zig. I'm never going to go to something that is a kitchen sink kind of language. And you could say the same thing about NIM, that it's sort of a kitchen sink language. I don't think it's as extreme as Rust, but it definitely has too many features. And but I don't like I said, I don't regret using it. I think it was the least bad choice, and I made a lot of fun projects with it. But I'm gonna try this out. I'm gonna give it a shot and try to actually make something non-trivial in Zig. Because yeah, I mean, like I said, I find myself agreeing with almost all of the design decisions that they make, and I also love the tooling. Like I love that it's also a drop-in C compiler. They don't have a package manager yet, but when they do, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts getting used by plain C projects. Like they're doing a really good job of just integrating with the C world rather than trying to boil the ocean and replace all of it the way that Rust is trying to do. I think this is a more pragmatic kind of language. And I also saw, I don't know if this is true, but I think they're making a C backend, which will allow you to take any Zig project and compile it to a single C file. And that means you can just take that and consume it in any language that can talk to C code. You can just plop that into a C++ project, a Python project, whatever. To me, this was one of the big missed opportunities of NIM, because it compiles to C. That's what it does. That's what NIM does. But it doesn't compile to a single amalgamated C file. It just barfs out dozens and dozens of files, and then fires up GCC and it sends it all over. And it would be really nice if you could have an option to just output a single amalgamated C file that is easy to drop into another project. But I don't think that the folks working on NIM were ever interested in that use case. and that's too bad. Um, but anyway, I mean, um, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, you are working on a lower level here, and you have manual memory management you got to deal with, and I think that'll be a good thing for the project I have in mind, because I'll have more control over memory allocations. But for higher level projects, I'm not so sure. We'll see. Yeah, no, I'm gonna give it a shot, and you know, I'm kind of inspired because a lot of these people um, that I've been following online are building incredible projects, including the Serenity OS guy, whatever his name is, Andreas. Um, he's like the David Goggins of programming. That's I heard someone say that once. If you don't know who that is, just look him up. He's a former Navy SEAL, and I actually find when I see these impossible projects being made, it really inspires me. I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can take on something bigger than I tried in the past. So yeah, I'll try that, and um, I'm not abandoning any of my old stuff either, but I will give it a shot. I think it's the right time because they just released 0.10, which has a brand new self-hosted compiler in it. Uh, I'm sure there are still bugs, but now that it's a brand new compiler, I have a feeling the pace of development is gonna pick up. I feel like that Zig kind of stalled over the last couple of years because they were working on this compiler, and so all of the old bugs were not getting fixed. Um, but now it's out, and it looks like the pace is going to pick up really quickly. So that's kind of exciting, and we'll see how much I miss macros. I am still a Clojure guy at heart, so you never know. But I think from what I've seen so far, this is more than enough flexibility, and it really strikes a good balance that I haven't seen before. So yeah, I'll update you as I go. So peace.